Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy, Boulanger. Up next, what would a perfect dreamlike scenario offseason look like for the Baltimore Ravens? Let's talk. A perfect dreamlike scenario for the Baltimore Ravens may include, if we were in a conversation bantering back and forth, a lot of the same position groups. We absolutely would talk about upgrading and improving the offensive line. We would absolutely talk about building depth, quality depth at the wide receiver position. We probably would mention the edge rush position being a position that needs some upgrade, some attention. We definitely would mention the cornerback room and maybe even the safety room as positions that need some attention. And the Baltimore Ravens consistently are in a tight cap situation, right? We have roughly $6-ish million available to us, and that is not even enough to sign our draft class. And so we did a video maybe a week and a half ago where we created some cap space, giving Lamar Jackson an extension, extending Marlon Humphrey, trading Mark Andrews. We opened up about $40 million in cap space that would not be damaging to future years. And so even though we have that money, there's going to be some guys, young talent that we have that are going to need some contracts. Guys like Isaiah Likely, Kyle Hamilton, maybe Tyler Lindenbaum. And with those guys needing new contracts, we're still going to have to shop basically on a budget, right? Maybe we're not all the way at Goodwill this time. Maybe we're just hanging out at Walmart and picking up some good deals along the way. I do believe that the Baltimore Ravens will have one splash signing. They typically get off one splash signing per season. If you remember Marcus Williams, I guess you could call a splash signing with the amount of money that they threw at him. You can look at Odell Beckham, which I guess you could call a splash signing with the amount of money they threw at him. And then, of course, Derrick Henry would have been our splash from last season. So there is at least one splash signing, I think, coming this offseason. Now, who that splash will be, I have absolutely no idea. But if we're going to dream a little bit, if we're going to think perfection, then let's think about how the Baltimore Ravens typically operate in free agency. And let's see if we can get some talent in-house that can fill positions of need and it be in concert with how the Baltimore Ravens operate. So if we jump to the offensive side of the ball, and I'm really looking at positions that need upgrading or positions that need some depth, I'm going to start with an easy signing. The first perfect signing this offseason is going to be wide receiver Mike Williams. Why Mike Williams, you might ask? Well, when you look at the entire free agency list of wide receivers, which we absolutely need depth at, you start with T. Higgins. He's not coming to Baltimore. He's going to be too expensive. And the latest news on T. Higgins is that the Bengals are willing to franchise tag him once again. In fact, I hope they do. We'll talk about that much later in another video about the AFC North. When you jump down and you look at the other rankings for wide receivers, you got Chris Godwin coming off of a major leg injury. Don't want that. Stephon Diggs coming off of a major leg injury. Don't want that. You do have guys like Keenan Allen and Amari Cooper who are ranked above Mike Williams. I would be willing to take either one of those guys. Those are team guys, good route runners, good hands. But I don't know what they're going to offer much different than Nelson Aguilar or Tylan Wallace gave us last year. And so the reason why I'm selecting Mike Williams as the Baltimore Ravens signing is not because he's the Mike Williams between 2017 and 2022. But Mike Williams offers something that no other wide receiver offers with the exception of T. Higgins. He's that big-bodied wide receiver that the Baltimore Ravens have probably needed over the last 3 or 4 seasons. I know he had a down season, but I think some of that was due to the confusion that was going on in New York and the inconsistency in offense down in Pittsburgh. Our offense is somewhat fluid. Our offense is figured out. And I think to plug a Mike Williams in to that third wide receiver slot, not the number 1, not the number 2 necessarily, but that third slot, I think he's an immediate upgrade over Nelson Aguilar because he is 6'4", 6'5". He is 215, 220 pounds. And as big as he is, he kind of serves as a deep threat, a chain mover, and also a red zone threat. With understanding, a lot of times I hear conversations about, well, Isaiah Likely can play that big wide receiver spot. He can, but Isaiah Likely, for his entire career, college and pro, has played inside out from tight end and maybe moved outside. But his route pattern, his physical attributes are better served from that tight end position. Mike Williams is a true wide receiver who has been a productive number one. The knock on Mike Williams is that he is often injured. But when I went back and pulled some of the numbers for Mike Williams, prior to his ACL injury, he had played in 13 plus games every season prior to the 2023 season. And so I guess if you're on the outside looking in at Mike Williams, he is often injured. But if you kind of inspect his career as a whole, he is mostly available. Now, he only played in 9 games last season. Some of that, again, was because of the confusion in New York and the trade and then having to find a new fit in the offense. But I think he would be an absolute perfect fit for what we're trying to do in Baltimore. And he would add something that we have not had, a big-bodied wide receiver who is already proven. Now, does he have the same speed he used to have? No, but he still has the same catch radius. He still has the same body control. He still can contest jump balls and things of that nature. So I think that he would come in, immediately upgrade that third wide receiver position. And I think we could get him for relatively a bargain price. He did have a down season, and he probably would come in at 2 years, 16 million, something like that, 2 years, 15 million, because his estimated contract for this season is 1 year and 10 million. Well, his contract last year was 1 year and 15 million. And so he definitely would come down off that last year's salary. And so I think with a good team, a team with Super Bowl aspirations, I think that he would be willing to take that 2 year, $15, $16 million deal. And I think that he would be beneficial for us because he does not have to come in and be the guy on every play of every snap. And so Mike Williams would be the dream signing for the Baltimore Ravens, because if we're trying to get something different and upgrade at the same time, Mike Williams is the only wide receiver other than T. Higgins that does offer both, right? The upgrade and the size. So let me know what you guys think about Mike Williams. All right, so let's move to the second dream/perfect signing for the Baltimore Ravens for the 2025 offseason. And let's pick up offensive tackle Justin Skill from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, unless you've just been down in the trenches and you're well endowed with NFL roster information, you probably wouldn't have known who this guy was. And so I had to do some digging when I was looking for an offensive tackle, because I know we need some improvement, some depth, that kind of thing. I went and just looked at the rankings. Of course, Ronnie Stanley is the number 1 rated offensive tackle for this free agency, but I found Justin Skill in the number 10 spot. Now, are there better prospects for the Ravens between Ronnie Stanley and Skill? Absolutely. But this is the kind of signing that you see the Baltimore Ravens make. So let's get into the information about Skill. He appeared in all 17 games for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers plus their playoff game, which means he played meaningful football last season. He had almost 400 snaps, and he played a combination of left tackle and right tackle, and also he played the swing tackle position, which means he has versatility, which is something else that the Baltimore Ravens have an appreciation for. I think Skill would be an upgrade over a guy like a Patrick McCarry. I think he would be an upgrade over last year's signing, Josh Jones, I think his name was. I'm not 100% sure. We didn't really see him last season, but I think he would be an upgrade. When I got into his numbers and kind of saw what he was about, he's 6'6", 315 pounds, the exact same measurements as last year's starter for the Baltimore Ravens, Ronnie Stanley. Also, he comes in with a 69 overall offensive tackle rating. He's a 66 rating as a pass blocker and a 69 He has over a 69 rating as a run blocker. And so when I did some comparison to what we had last year in Ronnie Stanley and what we would get in a signing like this, and the numbers are not that far off. Ronnie Stanley had an overall rating of 71, only 2 above Justin Skill. And Ronnie Stanley's pass blocking grade is higher, but Skill grades out at a much better rate for run blocking. And so he would definitely fit what we want to do offensively, run the ball and complement it with the pass. Now, am I saying he's the starter? No, but he would add quality depth at both left tackle and right tackle. And that's in the context of, I think Ronnie Stanley does leave in free agency. His expected salary for this year comes in at around $2 to $3 million. He signed a 1-year, $1.3 million contract last year, give or take a few dollars. And so I think the Baltimore Ravens could easily pick him up 2 years, $5 million, 3 years, $7 or $8 million, bringing him in at a 2.25 average, something like that. A cheap signing, but quality depth, somebody who could slot in as a starter until we figure out more of a long-term answer. I do think that this signing is a quality signing, and of all the guys who are available, he kind of grades out as one of the better offensive tackles in this weak offensive tackle class as it pertains to free agency. And I think this signing will also lean into the Baltimore Ravens drafting a left tackle or a right tackle, depending on what they do at Roger Rosengarten. And so I think this guy will be a good signing for the Baltimore Ravens. All right, so let's move to the third signing in this 2025 free agency group in the perfect/dream scenario for the Baltimore Ravens. And we're going to go with guard James Daniels from Pittsburgh Steelers. Daniels is a guy that you may not know the name of if you're not, again, deep in the NFL roster information, but he's a guy who kind of grades out really high. In fact, he has the best overall grades of all of the guards in this draft class, although he comes in at the 5th overall ranking. Daniels is 6'4", 327 pounds, and he has an overall rating as a guard of 92. He has a 66 pass rating, and he has a 92 run rating. And those are things that we absolutely need. Do we want him to be a little better as a pass blocker, Certainly. But that run blocking grade is the best in this class. Now, what has him probably at number 5 versus probably up near the top is that he did have an Achilles injury this past season, which cost him 14 weeks, which means he probably got injured right at the end of September. So by this time, he's roughly 6 months past surgery and on his road to recovery. Now, I don't really like signing injured players. I don't, but the Baltimore Ravens do. And remember, this is what we're talking about. We're kind of leaning into how the Ravens like to do business, because they certainly would get a bargain on Daniels because of the injury, and the potential for him to kind of upgrade this offensive line is very, very high. Patrick McCarry, last year's starter, grades out at a 63 as a run blocker, and Daniels is exponentially higher, which will certainly improve our ability to run the ball. Daniel grades out higher than guys like Trey Smith. He grades out higher than Kevin Zeitler, Tevin Jenkins, and even Will Freeze from the Indianapolis Colts. And so I think he could be a great signing for the Baltimore Ravens. I think that he would probably command a very similar deal that he signed several years ago in that 3 years, 26, something like that, coming out to be about $8 million. But if his medicals check out right in free agency, I think he would be an absolute steal, and he would be an immediate upgrade over McCarry and over Voorhees, and I think even over Daniel Falele. And so I think this guy could be one of the Ravens' better signings, especially when you're trying to build an offensive line that's dominant in the run game, but also quality in pass blocking. And I think this sign could be beneficial for the Ravens because it still would lean into going into the draft and maybe picking up another guard or two, again, to build that depth, which would then allow him even more space to kind of continue to heal and recover. With an Achilles injury, he should be on pace to be ready for training camp if the Baltimore Ravens were to take a chance on him. But if he is not our candidate, there is another guy that I would sub out for him in Aaron Moore from the San Francisco 49ers. And Moore does not grade as high in any metric. He grades out as I think he was a 65 overall rating as a guard. He has a 60 rating as a pass blocker and a 68 rating as a run blocker, which is still better than what we had graded out for Patrick McCarvey, so he still would be an upgrade. I'm looking at these two guys to either one, add veteran depth at those positions, or two, bring in guys who are starters in the league who could challenge those guys who may be above them. Again, and that still leans into giving the Baltimore Ravens an opportunity to draft young talent in the draft. And neither one of these signings, whether it's James Daniels or Aaron Moore, is going to break the bank. Again, Daniels should probably come in between 3 years, 24 to 26 million, and Aaron Moore would probably come in 3 years, 10 to 12 million. And so I think both of these guys are great options. Let's move to our fourth signing in free agency. Now, do we really see the Baltimore Ravens going for 4 free agency signings? Maybe not, but I'm going to lean into it anyway. I want to grab a veteran backup quarterback. And there's 2 guys on the list that I think would give the Baltimore Ravens a better option. And I'm going to go with Tyler Huntley. Now, no matter what you think about Tyler Huntley, I think that he could come in and he would be an upgrade over what we had last year in Josh Johnson. Now, Josh Johnson didn't play. Lamar Jackson was available for every game of last season. But the reason why I went with Huntley is because he knows the system. He knows the Baltimore Ravens organization, and they know him. He is a team guy. He is very, very familiar with Lamar Jackson. And he has a lesser skill set, but a similar skill set. And if we ever had to turn to Tyler Huntley, the benefit of him returning and playing with this version of the Baltimore Ravens is that he would have access to better personnel, right? Before he left, there was no Zay. Before he left, there was no Derrick Henry. And so he would just come back with better personnel. He did play for the Miami Dolphins this past season, and he did some good things. But of course, it was a step down from Tua, but that's what a backup is supposed to be. A backup is not supposed to be the starter. He's supposed to step in and keep the team steady while the starter gets back healthy. And I think Tyler Huntley could do that for the Baltimore Ravens. And he wouldn't command a lot. He has not made a whole lot of money. He's made good money as a backup. But I think that the Ravens could bring him back on a 2-year, $5 million deal. Not a whole lot. I think it would be a better option than just trying to find somebody in the draft in that 5th, 6th, or 7th round, because we saw how that turned out last year. I think bringing back Tyler Huntley definitely offers us an upgrade at that backup position and a guy who could step in and play in a similar fashion to Lamar Jackson. And so that would be my dream scenario for the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I know it feels like we did some bargain bin shopping, but really all of the guys that I picked, you can just pick up at Walmart, right? You don't have to go to Goodwill. You don't have to go to the Salvation Army. I'm not banging on either one of those organizations. I'm just saying you could literally go get those guys from Walmart at a Walmart level. And I think all of those guys, Mike Williams, James Daniels, or Aaron Moore, Justin Skill, and Tyler Huntley, I think they all would come in and be quality depth pieces, which then leans into that we don't have to have any kind of emergencies when we go into the draft. If we go into the draft season and we don't have anybody in place at all at left tackle, we're in trouble. If we don't have a real answer at either one of the guard positions, we're in trouble. And if we don't have a backup quarterback, we are in trouble. So I think all three of these guys, one, offer depth, two, all could step into a starting role, with the exception of Huntley, because you have Lamar Jackson. All could step into a starting role and be serviceable while their younger predecessors get ready to take over that spot long term. I think these guys are better signings than the ones we picked up last year in Josh Jones. And did we sign any other free agents last year, offensive linemen? I don't remember. But I think that this would hit all the spots offensively that we need to be addressed, and then we could be more comfortable going into the draft. Now, let me be very, very clear. I know that these are not the upper echelon guys, right? If I had to say that the Baltimore Ravens indeed go with a big swing offensively, there is no wide receiver that we're going to make a big swing on. I just don't believe that. And other than T. Higgins, there is nobody that would be credible to pay a large amount to. When you look at the left tackle position, it's basically Ronnie Stanley or nothing. And I'm willing to walk away from Ronnie Stanley and go with skill as a stopgap while we get the future tackle in place. So of the offense, if the Baltimore Ravens could go out and get a Will Freeze, he rates out really well as an overall blocker. I think he's somewhere between 78 and 80 overall as a guard. He rates out at about an 84 as a run blocker and a 70 plus rating as a pass blocker. So I would love to see them go get a guy like a Will Freeze, who would probably cost them $14 million per year, which is his market value. But if they could get him, it would be an instant upgrade. And so I think a Will Freeze signing, if that's the big swing, could absolutely bring success to this offensive line. So listen, let me know what you guys want me to know about all of these signings, and we'll talk about it in the comment section. I'm your guy, Boulanger. This is the GM, and I'm out.